along with certain types of foods you can eat or you can avoid or you need to avoid, and herbs and supplements that will help these inflammatory processes to do their jobs in the body and then go away. So it becomes a self-limiting process instead of something that goes out of control. Healthy nighttime sleep patterns is also something that's very important. And I know I hear people all the time. They have I would say a lot of people in the society, they have problems with that. Creating healthy sleep hygienes, like preparing for that bad time. Having a routine that your body gets used to, so your melatonin levels start to raise just at the start of you starting those activities, because it knows that, oh yeah, after I'm doing these stretches or doing this physical therapy exercise and brushing my teeth, what's going to come? I'm going to have to lay down and go to sleep. So you kind of train your body to do this, and the time management part plays a key role as well in establishing those patterns, because especially for someone who struggles with going to sleep chronically, going to bed at the same time actually really can help your body get used to, okay, this is rest time. And you might lay there for a while, and it might be harder to go to sleep in the beginning, but then your body gets it, that's the time for rest and to drift into sleep. And I recommend, even thinking about your day, where can you take some time to yourself to rest and to do maybe a breathing exercise, a quiet prayer, meditation time, or a relaxing walk, or whatever exercise. If walking is not something that is really relaxing for you for that short amount of time, then something that's like that will do the job. And this leads us to paragraph B. So exercise is also vital to keep the stress and anxiety at bay and to maximize the healing processes. Exercise can really help with the acute phase of stress, like when you're dealing with something acutely, and there's that there's that surge of these hormones that we just discussed, as well as chronically. What they've observed, what studies show, is that they lower inflammatory markers in the body. They normalize mitochondrial function, which is your body's energy supply. So you will have more energy, even though you invest more into exercise. You invest your energy into exercise, but long term, you actually are finding yourself, having more energy. And it is, studies also show that it's helpful in progressive diseases like Alzheimer's and dementia and other neurological diseases. We can put a lot of the things there. I haven't read anything in particular about ataxia, but I know that anecdotally that people testify about that exercise is something that is helping the progression of the disease, or slows down the progression, helps them keep things at bay. Roman numeral 4, using food or viewing food as your medicine. Of course, we've often heard the quote by Hippocrates, who is called one of the fathers of medicine. He said, "Let food be your medicine, and medicine your food." And I feel like this is almost like an overused statement in some circles anyway. And we give a lot of lip service to it, but we don't really observe it too well. But I just want to encourage you to look at your every meal as an opportunity to bring something healing to your body, bring something that increases that, what we talked about, that innate regenerative abilities. And look at your foods as such. Just one thing I wanted to share with you, just about what we said with the epigenetics. We have a genetic makeup, but it's not necessarily going to be expressed all the way. So let's say someone has a propensity or a familial predestination or propensity to develop a certain type of cancer. They have the genes, right? A lot of the cancer research says, as well as with ataxia, that you have certain genes, and if you have the certain genes, you'll most likely have that tumor, that cancer. But what epigenetics says is that if we do certain things to our bodies, then those genes are not going to turn on. That tumor is not going to be expressed. That cancer cell is not going to come to life or to fruition because you constantly suppress that gene. I was just at a Medicines from the Earth conference in Black Mountain, and one of the presenters, he was showing us this study that they did on rhodiola, which is one of the herbs we'll talk about here in a moment. It's one of the adaptogens. And what they did was, it's kind of like extreme study because they couldn't observe this in the body, in the human body all that well. But what they did was they took out cells and they put it on a petri dish and they kept the cells alive, basically within that medium. And then they introduced rhodiola to that cell. And they were looking at how the genetic coding and how the genes of that cell changes, how the genetic makeup changes. And what they found is that just by that one single herb, that rhodiola, over 1,000 genes changed their expression. The genes themselves, they did not change, but the way the cell was expressing those genes, they changed for the better. So just that one herb, over 1,000 parts of the DNA were basically modulated. We can call it modulation, which is very intriguing. You know, you can think about when you eat a healthy meal, a wholesome meal that has, you know, spices, the turmeric and cinnamon and things that we know that are good for us, right? And sometimes all it takes is just a little more intentionality. Like if you like turmeric, you know, put it on your eggs, put it on your whatever food you eat. If you like cinnamon, you know, put it in your coffee. So there are small things that we can do, and there are big things too that we can do. But there's also a lot of small things we can do to improve on our diets and how we basically modulate that genetic makeup. It was very interesting. Page 3, page 3, paragraph B. You know, people often ask me what I think about certain types of diets, and you know, I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all. I don't believe that the keto diet is the solution, you know, for every situation. I think it's great for some, or the blood type diet, or there's so many different ones that people have come up with over the years. I think, you know, eating real food, like real meaning like it comes from plant, it's not processed, it's real wholesome food. Not too much, you know, more frequent meals are generally better than huge meals, and mostly plants. And I'm a meat eater, so I'm not promoting vegetarian diet either. I think it works great for some. I don't think that is the truth for all. I actually tried it and it didn't work for me. One way how you can specify your diet that is, you know, helps you kind of be more self-aware of what is good for you and what is not, is by keeping a food journal. It's something I'm really bad at actually, because I've tried it with, like, when I had seasonal allergies, I was trying to figure out, like, what are there certain foods like dairy or, you know, certain things or wheat that would trigger it more. And I find it hard, and it's a discipline, but when you're trying to get to the bottom of something, I think it's a very valuable tool. Basically, a food journal simply is, okay, this is what I ate, and this is how I felt after. Sometimes, or oftentimes, you're not going to make this huge discovery overnight. It takes maybe several weeks or several months, and if you drop out, you know, in a few days, that's okay too. But this is something that you might want to think about if you want to get, you know, better health results. Paragraph C, we covered some of this. I'm just using a couple of examples of these food groups that you can use every day, you can incorporate in your diet. For instance, turmeric. How many of you have heard about turmeric before? Turmeric or curry? Okay, so I have. So turmeric is a spice that's in curry, actually, and it's often used in India. It has this really beautiful, vibrant orange color to it. And in India, it's consumed so much that when they do autopsies on cadavers, they find that some of the brain tissue actually is orange. It's very interesting. They eat so much of that.
Wow.
But they attribute a lot of health benefits. It has amazing anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties. Some people take it for minor, moderate pain relief. And it's really a simple food, like if you like smoothies, you can put some of it in there. It has an interesting flavor, so it's not bad. It's just not like not like a candy bar. It's different, but it's good for you can use it. Like I love it on my eggs, for instance, and I do put it in my smoothies as well. But a lot of there's lots of research on it. There's they showed anti-cancer properties of that. It's a tuber. It looks like ginger, but it's orange. And amazing research and amount of research and results with just that one single spice. And this is not something that is way out there. It's something you can buy at Ingles or something. Turmeric is like everywhere. You can buy as a kitchen spice.
But this is what you buy at the grocery store?
There's better. There's better quality herbs, but yeah, basically when you go into Walmart, you can buy turmeric even there as a spice. And then there are some more organic growers or farmers whose soil is better, so the turmeric is going to be better quality. It's not a hard herb to grow, actually. You can grow it actually, right? You can just take a tuber and you just stick it in the ground, and it's going to actually come to fruition. And you eat the tuber part is what you eat, or the rhizome is what you eat of the turmeric plant. But yeah, it's basically what you would find on any grocery stores shelves, and there are better quality ones. Organic is generally better, not always, but yeah. Ginger is another one. Lots of research on ginger. Of course, most are known for digestion. In combination with turmeric, it really helps with inflammation patterns. Opens up the sinuses. It's a very strong, kind of has a pungent taste to it. It has those components. Increases circulation. Like if you're a person who is more sedentary, you don't move around as much. You want to think about foods and herbs that are going to help with the velocity of the blood flow. So you lessen the occurrence of blood coagulants. For instance, ginkgo is a really good herb for that reason. It actually inhibits platelet aggregation, which platelets are your part of your blood that makes you coagulate. So ginkgo is a really good one. There's ginger. There's other herbs as well for that. Asian ginseng, for instance. And some of them are, really inexpensive, and again, they're just very simple to add into your diet. And the key thing about, when you start thinking about holistic stress management, holistic anxiety management, holistic disease management, or holistic health overall, I would say, a lot of people think of it as like a drudgery. They're like, I have to give up all the fun, and it's just like I have to become this hippie, and I have to be, it's just it's like a doom and gloom in people's mind, but it doesn't have to be like that. And you can do little things, one step at a time. Like I never thought I would actually do it, because when I was going through the medical training, a lot of this was labeled as modern day snake oil. And then when I was kind of thrown into it, and I started to do my own research, I was finding how much research and folklore use and data there is out there about a lot of these. And I actually enjoy researching. It's like sometimes, I just take 10 minutes and I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm going to just research a certain herb, a certain spice. I'm like, okay, well, what is good for energy? And you can start kind of collecting that data. If you enjoy doing that, you can have you can keep a little journal about all of that, and or you can just remember it and just keep studying it. Roman numeral 5. We come to the herb group that I wanted to discuss with you. Paragraph A. Adaptogens is the group of the herbs that I'm finding fascinating, and it's something that the Western culture is becoming more aware again, because the Native Americans actually were using it pretty broadly, especially American ginseng. But adaptogens is a group of herbs that basically they help you. The reason why they are called adaptogens is because they help you adapt to stress naturally, and they do a lot more than just that. But because we talked about how important it is in disease pathology to keep those stress levels at bay, just the fact that they're helping to keep your stress levels down, along with the lifestyle aspects, they are a very important group of herbs. And they have been used for a very long time in folk medicine. Like when you, again, I mentioned the Native Americans, you look at the Chinese, you look at some of the African, you look at the Indian cultures, they have been using these for centuries. And of course they didn't have the placebo-controlled, double-blind studies on these, because those weren't available. Those have, they were not discovered yet. But what they were doing is observational theory. Like they would give a certain herb to certain diseases based on, trial. Some of it was trial and error, and then they were noticing that if I did this, this was the result. If I did this, this was the result. And if 15 out of 15 times I get the same results, maybe a little bit different outcome, but about the same results, and they're like, okay, so that herb must be good for that. And a lot of that has been thrown away by Orthodox Western medicine because double-blind placebo-controlled studies were not done on those certain herbs. But here's an interesting thing. I'll tell you a story. So in the so historically, drug companies have been looking at folk medicine for traditional use of herbs, I would say, traditional use of herbs and plants, and they were saying, okay, so if this herb was used for fever, for centuries, then there must be a component, there must be a compound in that herb, in that plant, that is good for fever. So let's isolate it. Let's find it, isolate it, let's put it in a pill. And then in about the 1940s, what happened was they were like, forget that tradition. Forget the traditional medicine, the traditional use. They went out into nature and they gathered all kinds of herbs and plants, and they were trying to isolate compounds. They were trying to isolate medicinal, isolates. What they realized, they spent a whole lot of money, and they had very little results. So they were like, okay, maybe we should go back to observing, those folk traditions, those traditional, how the plants have been used in traditional medicine, because that will tell us something. That will point us to the plant where we can isolate those compounds. I find it very interesting. So again, these are herbs that we have thousands of years of. On a lot of them, we have thousands of years of evidence. And then in the mid-1900s, a lot of people did that, but I'm just highlighting here Nikolai Lazarov and Israel Brackman, who were coming out of Russia. And in Russia, there was a re-emergence or resurgence of looking for herbs that would enhance physical endurance. But you can guess the reason why. During the Cold War, they were trying to defeat the United States in everything. They wanted to have better astronauts, they wanted to have better sports people, they wanted to have better, combatants, armed forces, and all of that. So they were looking for herbs that would help them do that, help them become superior to the other nations, especially the United States. So there were some studies that they did that were pretty, basic. They weren't like third-party placebo control. But one thing that they did was they would take, we call it Siberian ginseng, Eleutherococcus centricosus, which is eleuthero. And they would go to one factory. This was a study that they would go to one of the factories, and they would suspend that root in alcohol, and then they would give it to the people, to the